Tizot. I'm one of the founding members of La Nouvelle Agence, an architecture firm based in Bordeaux. And I'm going to be presenting today the project of the Fabrique Pola, which we finished building 3 years ago. So first, a word about the structure itself. The Fabrique Pola was founded in the early 2000s by a group of artists. It's a resource center to promote and develop the arts in the region of Nouvelle-Aquitaine. And in 2019, after 6 different locations, getting bigger every time, we moved to a permanent location, the Garonne warehouse, which we renovated, and which is located alongside the Garonne, the big river that goes through Bordeaux. Here you have a few of the people which are in Pola, but we are now about 120 in the building. And Fabrique Pola is a non-profit organization. It's created by and for the artists of the community. The team work at producing, creating, training, and exhibiting in this space, which is kind of a cultural center involving the public and a space dedicated to the professional structuring and promotion of visual arts. So this is an old illustration of Bordeaux, and we can see clearly here is the old center, and the main part of Bordeaux is on this side of the river. And our building is here in the left bottom corner of the picture on the side of the river. So today, this is a more accurate of the situation as it is today. And the city has been reclaiming the riverbanks for maybe 20 years now. And on this side of the river, we have a big park going all along and connecting to the new bridge, which has been built, which has been inaugurated 5 or 6 years ago. So there's a big, on both sides of the river, there's a big promenade, and our building is right here, ideally situated on this kind of tour that lots of people in Bordeaux just walk around there. In the Fabrique itself, we have lots of what we call structures, which are mostly associations. They're all involved with visual arts, and they are part of the structure permanently. So they make all the decisions together. I say they, but we are part of it too for 16 years now. And we also have a certain amount of artists which use the facility for periods of time, depending on their project, for a few months or sometimes up to 3 years. So this diagram shows a bit what everybody is involved with, because we started, of course, by doing all that work together, identifying the needs of every structure and how we were going to make the program of the building. So there's all kinds of diagrams with the activities, the ones and the others. And we build up the program like that. So this is the building that we renovated, which is the object of the presentation. This is after the works, of course, but it shows clearly what kind of building we were handed over, because this building is lent to us by the city for a period of 20 years. So we were able to invest and to do a real project for a permanent location. But we found ourselves actually this big warehouse, very simple, that was supposed to be demolished. So we saved it from demolition. And it's a very simple square building which was only used for storage, and which is kind of a perfect support for the kind of project that we were doing inside, because it's a very simple structure, repetitive. The closed was boxed, so I'll show later on how we managed to work on that. But we were basically building inside a big empty box, which is 30 meters by 120 meters. So a very big space. When we found it, it was like that. So with a lot of rubbish, but really open mostly, and sometimes with little walls separating spaces one from each other. But here we can see the structure, which is really simple. Every 8 meters, there's a big beam and column like that. So we were able to program everything on that very simple structure, which we can see here again. And so little by little, with the work of the programming and the space itself, combining both of them, we slowly decided on a few big principles which were going to be used to occupy the new space. And basically, it's the diagram that you see here. After, I'm not explaining everyone, but this is the main one. At the end, we decided to put 2 levels of offices for all the structure on the river side, which is not north, but almost. So it's really good for work and all that, and it's not overheating. And on the other axis, we created a succession of voids and filled up spaces to accommodate different parts of the programs that I'll explain later. So basically, this sums that up. We wanted to bring people to see what's going inside, what's happening inside, have a porosity on the facade where people walk along, and on the river, just have the views for everybody and the working spaces. This is the end plan, but you can see how, what I was saying just before quite clearly. All the big offices for the structure are on this side, and we have some inside streets on the other direction. And basically here we can see that the simple structure I was talking about is always there, very visible, and we built boxes inside of that because of course we cannot heat up the entire space. So all the offices and the working spaces are heated in our boxes that are built inside that big box. And the rest of that, you'll see on this axonometric, are very big circulation spaces and multifunctional spaces that people can occupy in different ways. And so we have the offices on the riverside, as I said, and the other spaces are structured from most public use to most private use. So we start up with a big garden that we use a lot, and gives a terrace on the Garonne. Then in the first part, which is very public, we have a restaurant underneath, we have an exhibition room, a second smaller exhibition room, kind of a little boutique that sells stuff that people make here. Then we go to that second part where we have a big tribune, a seating space where we can, it will be clearer with pictures later on, but where we can have conferences and concerts and happenings and stuff like that. Then in the third part, with this street, is more all the artist studios are located there. And in this last part is the big workshop of the factory, because there's lots of things being produced here. At the time of this part of the project, we were not able to build in this last part. But since then, we've acquired the last part, and we are now working on the project to extend the project in the entire building. And I'll show some images of that at the end of the presentation. So I'll come back to the axonometric. What we basically did is building everything inside, as you can see here. And so we needed to make a few changes on the outside to change the status of the warehouse to something else, but keeping in mind that we did this for a very little amount of money. The first phase of the building develops 4,000 square meters of space that we use, and we did that for a little bit over 2 million euros, 2.2 million euros. So basically around 500 euros per square meters. So we did as little as we could on the envelope, because that is always very expensive. But we changed the whole facade on the Garonne side, which I'll show later. And on the other side, we made big openings to suddenly give the opportunity for the people which are walking alongside the building to see what happens inside. So these big doors, which are really every time big 5-meter high doors. We can enter trucks and stuff like that, get in pieces, get out, lots of things that we need to get in and out of the building, and this gives a clear view on the inside for the people. So this is it. And every time we have such what I was calling before the inside streets, the other sequences on this direction of the building, you have one big door like that gives the light, that gives the view from the outside, and that enables us to do logistics. So you can see when stuff are happening outside. These doors are very often completely open like that when there's something happening in the building, and people are coming, or when we work on a daily basis, they are closed, but they give lots of light on the inside spaces. So we have also some on the garden. That is the opening. There's not as many people all the time. It's a nice picture. And also at night, we can use the garden and have all these big doors open when there's exhibitions and openings and stuff like that. There are some other. Here we can see behind everything is open, and the building is very transparent, let's say. On the Garonne side, we really took off the entire facade almost and replaced it with a succession of big windows. So every 4 meters, there's a 3-meter window on each story, and and this enabled us to put all the big offices for all the structures that work here. So they have the nice view that I have right now in front of the river. And well, we were very lucky with this building because this side is, as I said before, the north side. So there's no problem. There's no question of overheating and stuff like that. But also we can open the windows very wide because we have 500 meters of river before the other side. So we don't even hear the traffic and the cars of the city. It's very quiet. And since this building is very low tech, we heat the working spaces. We don't have air conditioning or stuff like that. So with the big doors we saw before on the other side and all these windows on the riverside, in the summer when it's getting warmer, we can open up lots of windows and have the air moving, and well, we managed to have good working conditions, but with a very low-tech building. So this is the facade on the riverside, and the terrace we had before. Since then, we've made a bigger terrace. It's different now, but I didn't have time to put a photo. Next time, maybe. You can see the view we have on the city, which is pretty nice. So when I was saying it's a very low-tech building, we really started to break off everything where we were inside. So that were good moments of the building process when we took off the entire facade on the riverside, for example. So they were pretty good moments. And after that, we really built inside with a very simple system where we did everything which is on the ground floor with cellular cement blocks, and we built really a concrete floor for the first floor for questioning noise and all that. And on the second story, we can see it here pretty clearly. Everything that is built on top of that is a wooden structure. I'll come back to this picture. Here we see it from the top. We also we found and chose a few structural elements which are very cheap and very nice that we weren't able to use before in more regular projects, let's say. This is a floor system which is made here in France to build garages in little suburban houses. And usually it's not seen unless in a garage, or otherwise there's a ceiling under it. But it looks like that. It's little concrete beams with wooden. I don't know how to say that really in English, but we pour the concrete on top of that. So we use that in the entire building. And, you'll see later on when we stroll inside the building with pictures how it looks in the end. This created an atmosphere on the first floor, which is really lots of, which is white, gray, and wood and concrete, let's say, and on the top floor, 100% wood structure building. This is the construction site. Okay, so now we're gonna stroll through the building, let's say, and going, like I explained earlier, from the most public spaces to the more private spaces. So this is the garden we use a lot. This old tower that we have on site. And a little block on the side is our outside bar, and here straight away, straight on the side is the exhibition room, the kitchen, all that. So this is the big exhibition room. Seen from the entrance. So the kitchen is in our back now. This is the kitchen. So you can see the structural system I was talking about earlier. So this gives, of course, on the terrace, on the riverside, and on the garden. It's a restaurant that we use for ourselves, and people can come as well and eat if they want. Then on the second space is that the first street, inside street, is the one where we have lots of well, we have this equipment that enables us to have conferences, concerts, and all that. And on the sides are offices that are used to lots of structure here are working with people coming for workshops and stuff like that. So that's mostly happens in this place. So I have several pictures. It can be used in many ways. Let's say the main character of the building is that it offers a lot of open spaces, and people here find a lot of different ways to use that all the time. So lots of fun things are happening, like this, like that. Okay. Or smaller events, anything goes. This is the third space where we have mostly artists working. So we made this street with lots of little workshops on the side of both sides of the streets, and they can open up completely these big doors and work in their workshop, but also go outside, work outside. That is a more private space, which is getting more workspaces. So this is a day where there's visits, but we can see all the little studios that give on the ground floor here. And there's also other studios on the first floor for people that are more involved with numeric arts and that don't need that don't lift heavy things, not sculptures and stuff like that. So now I have lots of picture. Yeah, this is the same. We can see. And this is what all the offices on the second floor look like, the big offices on the river. So with the wooden construction, they're big offices for 60 square meters. Sometimes, well, this is a meeting, of course, but sometimes you have one structure working with 8 or 10 people. And sometimes in the same office like that, you have 4 little structures, each made out of 2 people, for example. And this is completely at the end, the big workshop where there's which is run by a structure which is one of the 2 founding members of the Fabrique, which is called Zebra 3. And they are art producers, so they produce art works for other artists that commission them. So this is a different offices and inside spaces. So you can see it's always a very simple construction, minimum, no ceilings, everything is seen. All the electricity, the wiring, everything is always apparent. There's we had to find a lot of ways to save money. So for example, there's never a socket in any wall. All the electricity is coming from the top. You can see a cable dripping down. Then there's a big box with 10 sockets, and all the offices are wired like that, let's say. But that on the scale of that type of building, we had the 2 versions, and if we had sockets in all the walls of the building, like usual, we would have had to spend almost 300,000 euros more than with this system. So we found lots of ways to do a maximum with the little money that was available. This is another office, just to see, and these are some close-up shots of the different construction elements we used. Now, this is our serigraphy. I don't really know how to say that in English, but people will recognize that. I'm just showing different examples of how the spaces turned out in the building. And so now I'm coming back again to the main plan. What we saw is all this. So they say again, the exhibition, the tribune, the artist, and the workshop. And now we are working on the next phase. So at the moment it stops here. So we're going to do the part which is on the right. We've been working all together again to decide mostly what was going to happen in that new space. Basically, what we did is that the workshop, which is here, is going to move to the end of the building and be completely renewed. And on this part which is left, there's going to be a big empty space again to do all kinds of things. We don't really know yet what will happen. Lots of different things. And this big square is going to be completely orientated toward the artists which are living in the factory. So there's only these are only artist workshops. So here we can see this is the new part. So there's the big inside street open space, the workshop at the end, and these are all artistic workshops. So I have a few images of the construction of all that will start in May, so it should be finished in about a year. So that's the big empty street. We also probably gonna be rebuilding the tower that we saw in the garden, that have a few nice, we hope residency space for artists, with the view on the whole city. Renew the bar as well. And this is one we call the small workshop. So this is for artists sharing the space. This is the big one for 12 artists sharing the space. So every time they have a little private office and they can work in a larger collective space. This is another place where which is inside what already exists, but we're also putting new pieces in the existing project. And this is the big empty space, which is 250 square meters, and where we can do lots of different things. We'll see when it happens. Thank you.